keep in mind that the North Node represents forward progress. And if you're tapping into that energy archetype area of life, you will be progressing in life. It's not going to be necessarily easy, but you will know you're in the right direction. What I want to do here is just give a couple of insights based on where your North Node may be and particular ways to really extract a happiness out of there.
More power to the poets, make room for the righteous. Anything I touch turn to gold like Midas. I see the snakes, ninjas want to bite ya. Say they vibrate straight, they not like us.
What's going on, world? It's your boy Gemini Brown here, back with another episode of 𝐤𝐤𝐿𝐼𝐚 Knowledge. Today, we'll be talking about the best ways you can find happiness through your North Node. So, let's get into it. Before we get into it, I want to let you guys be aware of what I'm going to be doing going forward. So I'm going to be posting a lot more throughout my channel, not just videos, but through the community tab, just keeping you guys aware of all the things that I got going on. So with that said, if you haven't seen my latest freestyle over the 𝐥𝐤𝐤 Port Antonio beat, definitely check that out, add it to your playlist, and I'll be posting more of my music that's available on YouTube, and you guys can access it through there. But also keeping in mind that I am an artist that sells their things through their website. So my album, The Sun of Gemini 2, is available, very affordable, things of that nature. If you support it, you will love it. I got a preview coming this week for you guys, and what's on there more. But yeah, check that out. Secondly, this video is about the North Node. I'm going to do a sale this week, North Node readings, and I will break down your North Node in a very unique way and let you know some key points. Also got astro coaching sessions on sale too. If you've never tried it, give it a chance, and let's get into the video. In general, there are things that are really important to focus upon with your North Node. I covered them, in other videos. So keep in mind that the North Node represents forward progress. And if you're tapping into that energy archetype area of life, you will be progressing in life. It's not going to be necessarily easy, but you will know you're in the right direction. What I want to do here is just give a couple of insights based on where your North Node may be and particular ways to really extract a happiness out of there. Each chart and each position is going to require an exact alignment for its own happiness, but there are things within each sign and house that if we can tap into and acknowledge them, there will be a baseline of happiness there. So let's start with Aries and the first house. If your North Node is in Aries or the first house, you can't escape pouring into yourself or the projection of self within that particular area. So I made a previous video about physical exercise, and I think many of you know that Gemini Brown is not a threatening perspective or a condescending perspective. I just speak truth. So if anything that I said like in there about being in shape, right, having a physical relationship with yourself, right, if that like ruffled your feathers, that's kind of good. But it's also something that I think would do us all our best to acknowledge as truth. So for any North Node in the first or Aries, there's a relationship with the self, and because Aries is physicality, is more than likely in that way, that has to be cultivated. So the more we can consciously project self in alignment with the other elements of the chart, happiness will be achieved. I very much so know that someone with a North Node in Aries is meant here to experience a relationship with their body in whatever way. Common sense tells us physical exertion, play is the baseline for that. So that's a big one. And then, as I said before, that naturally leads to high vibrational qualities like confidence and discipline. Okay. Taurus, if your North Node is in Taurus, it's great to acknowledge that financial security is something that makes you happy. Taurus deals with like possessions. So at a deeper level, it's like, okay, what is this possession providing for me? Is this dealing with some layer of security, right? Survival. So like a car, your home, things of that nature. So with the North Node in Taurus, your possessions will ultimately represent some form of evolution or attainment. And then what you learn there is that none of that's really forever, but it's just a matter of the values we gain, right? And the things we obtain from having exercised those values. Third house, Gemini, your North Node is here. This is siblings, family, communication is a central force here, as well as the ability to express. But like I said, that's where your own unique chart matters, because maybe someone ends up with a North Node in the third house that maybe they don't have siblings, or maybe they have step siblings, right? That's going to add towards the flavor and all of that. But at the baseline, with North Node in Gemini and third house, you want to remain an active learner. You want to allow your curiosity to guide you. This is one where you kind of you have to be open-minded. Open-mindedness is your key. It's going to keep you traveling. Okay. There's a lot of other things that could be said with that. Overall, following your curiosity leads to happiness because it allows the mind basic stimulation, but the more you engulf, the more you find truth there, the more happiness can be attained if you find some way to implement that into your everyday life. North Node in the fourth. Real simple, or Cancer here. And I have an 11th house in Cancer. I get a lot of people with this position. On one side, it's about building, right? Cancer's a cardinal sign. Building the home life you want, building the family you want. Now, what you want is going to be based on what you experience. So I'll just say this for the North Node in the fourth in Cancer. Happiness is about becoming the king of your own castle in whatever way that is. So if you grew up with a whole lot of people, maybe happiness for you in adult life is knowing peace and, solitude, things of that nature. Then there's the cultural aspect that we got to keep in mind here. What culture am I being born into? What part of my being is that having a major effect on, right? How I'm seen, how I communicate, am I bilingual, things of that nature. North Node here, like happiness is having a culture, acknowledging a culture, being a part of it, not necessarily being lost in it, but just having a sense of pride. North Node in the fifth. And this is, man, this is me. This is me, y'all. And I recently had an experience with this position where it's like, it's about you. I'm here as Gemini Brown. And I'm sure if you have North Node in the fifth, chime in. This is a position where you're meant to express yourself creatively. However, it's pushing you to like stand in front of that as the solo act. So just how I'm Gemini Brown, I've come across like at least 60% of other people with this position who are creatively inclined, where they have one of them names as well that just flows. So if you have this position, you have to embrace you and the character that you've created or that you want to express, and just honor that. When you're evaluating your North Node, you always have to look at your South Node and like, okay, what is the unconscious pull or karma here that I keep doing? And, I can say for myself, it is about collaboration. It, to me, is just like 2 heads is better than one. right? But ultimately, I found in my life that I'm very capable of a lot of things. And when I lock into my capabilities, I'm more productive and more things open up. So North Node in the fifth, embrace all that individuality is, all right? North Node in Leo as well. North Node in Virgo or the sixth house. You can't escape the grind here. So happiness for you is about having an efficient routine. And this is tricky because happiness here, it depending on where that North Node in Virgo is, say it's in the second house. Happiness is not necessarily being rich. It's about being happy within the service that I provide that allows me to live or survive and all that. So with Virgo, there is this inferiority complex of like part of the goal with North Node and Virgo and the sixth house is to become a servant or embrace servitude. But the difficulty is comes in the sense of like I guess comparison to others' journey or feeling like if you're honoring yourself correctly, things of that nature. But ultimately, happiness comes from a day-to-day efficiency and a consistent self-improvement. So I'll reiterate, it's not always material improvements, but like how is self-improvement? And a lot of those battles could be very small ones, you know? North Node in Libra or the seventh house. Happiness is here is having relationships in which highlight or encourage your own individuality. When your North Node is in the seventh here, man, I actually find this is one of the positions that like man, say this ends up in the third house, eighth house. This can create with the right configuration. This can create someone being famous in your life or very successful or being able to assist you. Um, just think about someone who is they podcast with someone prominent, right? And now you know them off the strength of who that person they're with is. North Node and Seven is kind of like that. So, but overall, the happiness, like I said, comes from having the relationships that are cool, right? You're experiencing them, but they also allow you to see your own worth or your own individuality. Okay. North Node in Scorpio and the eighth house. This right here, the happiness comes from going through the transformation. So I keep it simple here. You can't resist the transformation. And on the Scorpio side, depending on the house it ends up in, you're going to experience this disillusionment. It's like, okay, I thought one thing here, or I was very intense about this particular thing, but ultimately I had to go through a death with it, and that transforms you for the better. So don't resist the death, embrace it. That's the more you're coming into the power of it. So ultimately the power for and the happiness in this North Node comes from the power that's obtained from experiencing the transformation. Okay, for people with North Node in the eighth, part of happiness does come from being in alignment with your desires. So if we're talking about like at a sexual level, at a deep level, this can be if you are someone with a particular kink or fetish, like part of that North Node can be like being able to find the proper outlet or comfortability with that. So food for thought in that regard. North Node in Sag or the ninth house. Happiness here comes from exploration. People that I've seen, you know, with this in numerous ways, these are the travelers of the world. And I always like say in this modern age, there's so many things available. So if you had a North Node in the ninth house in the 1950s, you couldn't necessarily actualize that how you can now because there's so much more available. So happiness comes from consistent expansion, think travel and movement, right? Um, just think, even if you worked hard on a goal for a year or two, that's like freedom. That's you growing. So you honoring that energy at the same time. So exploring, spontaneity, things of that nature, and also an open-mindedness towards learning and then, being able to implement. North Node, Capricorn, 10th house. Real simple here. Happiness comes from embracing the power that comes with professionalism. If you have these positions in this modern age, that was really supported throughout Pluto and Cap, like playing the role. The tricky thing here, I feel like I found, is that like this North Node actually also supports faking it till you make it. There are people here who found happiness with this thing through like kind of just like being confident or assuming a role that they may not have been qualified for, but kind of learned on the fly. So you want to embrace whatever role life gives you. It's kind of like with myself, like people said, man, I like the way you explain things. Oh, I like the way you said that. It's like, so the more I leaned into that, I'm like, okay, what opportunities can this open up? Right. And just taking advantage of them. So one way to work against this is to not embrace like growing up or the reality of the world and responsibility. I'll also say too, I think that because the North Node and the 10th house here, it teaches you about the grind. And then like with Capricorn, it could bring a bit of boringness to a place, but that boringness is like making you have to be serious. So, giving an example, if your North Node is in the 6th house, like you might really not relate to work as fun. But through time, it's like shit's not fun, but I gotta do what I gotta do. You can become a master worker here, someone who is able to really get shit done, but it won't necessarily be fun. Um, let's say Capricorn in your 8th house could like it could give you good sex when you get it, but it also could make it like, damn, there's a lot of times where it's like boring. So you get like this reality with the North Node in the 10th in Capricorn about life. But it's like embrace that because kind of helps you stay away from excess. So yeah. North Node in the 11th house in Aquarius. Oh, this is one of the good ones too, man. Like this is about embracing all that is different, all that is new and innovative. Happiness comes from like embracing others, but embracing them for their uniqueness, and then therefore you'll be embraced for your uniqueness. So ultimately, happiness for the individual with this position comes from self-acceptance, but also like self-acceptance of like circumstances. So y'all know that I look at Aquarius as like representing people who are like mixed in some type of way. So if your North Node is, let's say, in Aquarius in the 4th house, you may not have necessarily understood or accepted that your family unit was different than others, but into your adult life, there's a power there, a full-on, acceptance of, who you are. It's a pretty good North Node, man. People get embraced, and if you have a good nature about you, you're gonna reap some of that as well. North Node in the 12th, North Node in Pisces. So on the Pisces side, you will need to spiritualize or add a sacredness to wherever that North Node represents. This is your dream power. So this is North Node Pisces is actually powerful, but you need to dream. You need to dream, and you need to treat that area of life with a certain sacredness. At the same time, so yeah, happiness comes from there. In the North Node in the 12th house aspect, happiness comes from like karmic balance, okay? And that's gonna look different for everybody. So, like, what are the karmic lessons that are right in front of my face? What do I really need to lock in, paying attention to? And then, like, an example is kind of like if you have North Node in the 12th, you might be learning about addiction in this lifetime. You yourself may become an addictions counselor. Now, that path looks different for everyone. You can come about this through growing up an addiction, experiencing it yourself. Spirituality, psychology, all those things are entailed within that as well. So happiness comes from the acknowledgement, the consciousness of what was once unconscious. Okay? It's a little bit here, y'all. Like I said, reach out to me if you want a unique breakdown of your own particular North Node. Got those on sale right now. Check out my book, Astrology of the Matrix, my album, Sun of Gemini 2. Till next time, peace.